Hey everybody, St. Paul here. Welcome to episode 46 of Music on the Run. Wait till you hear who my next guest is. Great guitarist from New York. Another double P. Paul Pesco is coming right up. Hey everybody, St. Paul here. Welcome to episode 46 of Music on the Run. Thank you very much for joining us. We don't take that for granted. We love having you come here. We're almost up on 2 years of doing this podcast.
Wow.
I know. Now, since our last podcast, let me fill you in on some current events. I got a chance to do a gig with Mr. Jared Lawson, who was a previous guest on this show.
Very cool.
And we had such a blast. And I got to admit one thing. Okay, so this is Music on the Run. I'm supposed to be leading by example and, staying in good shape. I got to tell you, I'm in a little bit of a funk as far as running goes. And I don't know why. It's just one of those things where I'm just, I'm just not motivated right now. But it's good for me to kind of be honest with you guys, because it's going to kick me in the butt to get out there and do it again. So those of you who are not motivated to get out and run, let's you and I make a pact and make sure that we start being healthy, because it, for me, running has always been great mentally, of course, physically, and it's time to get back out there. Sometimes we can overload our plate. I know my next guest knows all about how to overload his plate, but let's just make a pact. Let's get back out there, wipe the slate clean. And time to start running again, or doing whatever it is that you do to stay healthy. All right. So without further ado, I almost forgot. I got a gratitude segment as well. This is our third installment of that. And the gratitude segment is all about our patrons. And you're going, who's your patron? There is an opportunity for you to help us financially put on this podcast. The way you do that is by going to www.patreon.com/Music on the Run podcast. And there you can kind of put some skin in the game and help us put this podcast on. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of technology, as you see and hear, and a lot of people involved. And it's a labor of love, but it does cost money to do this. And we sure appreciate your help. There's some goodies you can get as well. There's a few different levels. Check it out. Patreon.com/Music on the Run podcast. And I want to shout out to two of our $10 a month people. Thank you, Nancy Anderson and JD Washington, for your support. You guys have been hanging in there with us for the entire ride, so we appreciate you so much. Now, all right, my guest today is an old buddy of mine.
Oh, yes.
He's had so many cool high-profile gigs. It's been so much fun to watch. He's a songwriter, a film score composer, a guitar player, of course, artist, producer, musical director. And he just told me the other day that he's played on over 200 albums. Dang. He's played, some of those records are with Madonna, J-Lo, Hall & Oates, to name a few. Please welcome my guest, Paul Pesco, double P. And
hello.
My brother, thank you for sitting tight on that intro. We gotta be honest with the people who are listening in here, trying to get inspired.
You gotta be
out and run, and I'm like feeling like a load.
You got to be straight up about it. I'm kind of going through the same thing, but for very good reason, though.
Why? What's going on?
Well, see, I never really like to run that much.
Okay.
But I'm a bicyclist, as you well know.
Well, that's fun. Whatever gets you going.
Right. But it's funny. I recently was working, a number of years ago, I worked on an album with Greg Beek, who I'm sure you're friends with. It was actually Daryl Hall's last solo album. And we worked in Harbor Island. We worked in several different studios around the world in a way. And you can't always have a bicycle with you. And Greg's a big runner. So he goes, all you need is shoes, man. Just some good shoes. and get out there, and we would do like 5 miles would be far for me, But,
Yeah.
he got me into it though, man. I can go do a 10-mile run and love it. I'm really into it, but I have to go back 8 months now, or about 7 months. I had I actually had torn a ligament called something called the supraspinatus on my right side. Supraspinatus, exactly. Well, those of you who know anatomy, you can look that up, and it's a top stabilizer, right? But I had torn it. I had some gear in the back, and I did that one move while driving. Let me grab my backpack. The strap must be stuck under something, under a road case or something. So I gave it a big tug. No, I gave it three big tug, and I gave it a huge tug, and it still didn't come. My shoulder was different. I had to actually have surgery last November. Last October. And so I was like not riding bicycle, not running or anything, even on the treadmill, just like chill for like 3 months, not even move. I couldn't even play guitar really. That was really kind of a drag. So now I'm kind of getting back into it. I got my strength, I've been doing like a little bit of the therapy, physical therapy, but I'm ready to hit the trail now, man.
Let me ask you something. We aren't even into music yet, but this is fascinating. How do you have surgery in the middle of a pandemic?
That is, yes. Well, it was definitely disconcerting, and my wife was worried. But we made it through. It was with some great orthopedic surgeon who they actually used this machine that I was under, so I wasn't even conscious for it. But they explained it to me. They were able to get it done fairly quickly, and everybody was masked up, and so.
Jeez,
without
you're in New York, right?
Yes.
Upper.
I'm in upstate. Yeah,
upstate.
What we call upstate. But people who actually live upstate consider this downstate. So we're like kind of somewhere in the middle, but north of New York City by about 80 miles. In Dutchess County. It's quite beautiful here, really.
That looks like your bedroom, the recording studio.
Oh, yes.
I know you live in there, man.
Yeah, that's right. There's more to the story, for sure.
Sure. Well, we'll get into all that. Now, you and I have known each other for so long. I can't even remember when we met. Do you?
I do. I remember when I first met you. It was at a recording studio called Sorcerer Sound.
Oh, okay.
And we were working on Step by Step,
Jeff Lorber record.
Jeff Lorber album, and you were there already. I got there I remember walking in, and you're just like kind of leaning down in this alcove. They have Al Firestein, who owns Sorcerer, he's a great acoustician. He's one of the acousticians of New York City. He goes and tunes Avery Fisher Hall or something, or Radio City.
Right.
So, he's one of those guys, takes readings and says, okay, we need some absorption here. We got to get rid of 80 hertz over here, But that's his studio, and we did the first System album. I did some of the first sessions I ever did right there on Mercer Street, down in in Soho, south of Houston Street, right? People call it Houston Street. That's how you know if people are from New York or not. I'm looking for Houston Street.
Y'all know where High Houston Street is.
Yeah. So, but
dude, I remember that as well, and that was one of the first breaks I ever had getting a song on a record, and that was a song called Groovacious.
Wow.
And Jeff Lorber wanted me to come out for that, and it was Mick and
David
Frank who produced that record, and I think they flew me out. I'd never been to New York City before.
Wow.
I think I was 18 years old. I was scared to death and didn't have a nickel in my pocket. I didn't know. I think I had spent a certain amount of money getting from the airport down to the studio. Had no more money to get to the airport, so I think I figured out how to get money out of a credit card or something like that. But I was terrified.
Hey, I had a car. I would have given you a ride, man.
I know. I should have asked you.
Yeah, just ask.
I know.
My old beat up Chevy.
Oh, man. Tell me about those early days of session work in New York City. How was that? How'd you get into that?
Well, it's very interesting. I grew up out in Long Island. I went to high school. Well, I grew up kind of all over the place. From the Rochester area, upstate.
Oh, okay.
Well, truly upstate. It's right at the Canadian border, practically. But that's where my dad grew up, around the Finger Lakes, Canandaigua. I don't know if you know upstate New York much, but we lived there until I was about 8, and then we moved down to Long Island. And so my father is a music teacher and opera singer. So we lived in Long Island for 1 year, and that was in 1968. And then we moved to Germany for 5 years, where my dad had gotten a gig singing. He's singing professional opera in an opera theater, and we'd always do like the summer festivals, Tanglewood, Chautauqua. You probably did. Did you ever do? Was it Interlaken or something like that? I know you.
I can't remember. You and I have done so many of those things that it just
Well, as a child, my dad was in a lot of these festivals, the summer festivals. Tanglewood is one of them, and he'd be in the chorus or have a solo spot. And Chautauqua is another, and it's in Chautauqua's upstate New York, and Tanglewood's in Massachusetts, and it's really kind of where the Boston Symphony is in the summertime. And there's all these great concerts. I saw some of the best. I saw Al Hirt play when I was when I was like 7, 8 years old. I'm like, who is this? And I was like, man, that drummer is good. And I always had a thing for drummers from New Orleans. It's like,
kidding.
Oh, this is funky, man. I just love it. I love where they lay the pocket.
So your love for music comes naturally from
it's like kind of the environment. Yeah, my father's a music teacher. And, largely there was a lot of classical music in my house. We'd listen to, Puccini, Verdi, and in Germany, we would be at the Wagner Festival every summer, which is Richard Wagner, right? Mm-hmm. But also, all this music is very thematic and almost like movie music in a way. There's a lot of dramatic music where they just have this little incidental stuff. And I remember just kind of listening to it, and it was just so. There would be songs, the arias that they would sing, but then there would be all this kind of dramatic music, and to me, it was just like really fragmented. And I was like, "What is that? That's not a song."
Yeah.
And I remember kind of noticing that as a child because it was just really odd to me, and it was just because dramatic accents, like in film, as I'm sure you've experienced, really is sometimes really obtuse or like to really accent a scene or a movement or something. They'll just the composer will use intervals, just a minor second for something, just or whatever. It's not all
tension or whatever. Yeah.
Right, tension and resolution. It isn't always the most harmonious thing, and that's for dramatic effect. I remember noticing that early on as a kid, going, "That's so weird. That's strange. That's strange." That's not a song.
That explains a lot, Paul.
Yeah, but my father had this great record collection of just all the classics. But then he had like John Coltrane's greatest hits, and
really
that it was like the Atco release, and it had Giant Steps on it. It had My Favorite Things. Mm-hmm. It had Equinox on it, which is another song, Minor Blues, that I just know since I was 9 years old, 10 years old. But just from listening to it, I didn't really start playing guitar until I was about 12. But
so did you play other instruments before that? Before you landed on the guitar? Or?
I reluctantly played piano. My parents, my mom's Korean, my father, the music teacher, so. The classic Korean mom is just like you're getting piano lessons from age 5, from 6.
I got news for you. That's every mother.
Well, so we all had piano lessons. Me and my 3 sisters, and it was something. It's funny. I didn't absolutely. I'm so glad that I had that experience, because I'm not like you or Ricky, but I love being able to play piano and write. It helps composing. I just love being fluent and with having the ability to play piano. So I'm eternally grateful to my parents for pushing that on me. But it's funny. I went through the various instruments in school. Like in 4th grade, I played trumpet. I wanted to play in the school band, and I just kind of went through instruments until I landed at the guitar, going, "This is the one. I love playing this, and I can just play forever." And it hurt, as you well know, with getting calluses. But after a while, it's just I felt at most at home on the guitar.
Growing up, who did you love to listen to on the guitar? Who was your hero?
Well, there were various. Really, I kind of got into like listening to like Simon and Garfunkel, James Taylor.
So more folky.
Yeah, it's funny because those were like the records that were kind of around, and they were friends of ours. My sister, my older sister Jeanette, 5 years older than me, and so she had friends that would come over, and there were a couple that played. I remember this one guy. I think his name was Dan. I forget his last name, but he had a guitar and he was good, and he kind of sang like James Taylor. So he would come over and play, and those were his things. And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. That's cool." And I remember the first song I ever learned was "House of the Rising Sun."
Really?
So it's right. This the A minor, the C to, it was kind of the standard of the day in the late 60s, early 70s. But I really kind of got the fever when, and I still to this day don't know whose records they were, but they were left at our house, and they just stayed there, and I listened to them every day since from the time that I discovered them, and that was Jimi Hendrix's smash hits and Band of Gypsies, and that's what like made me crazy for the guitar. Yeah, I was like, all this folky stuff is cool, but listen to that. How does he do that? And it was Hendrix, and then I discovered Santana. Santana Abraxas album, and every song on that album they were just amazing. His guitar playing is so lyrical and just so connected to his soul. That affected me.
What was the moment that you decided this is what I'm going to do
for a living?
Yeah.
I don't think that happened for a while, but the love for it happened right away.
About 45, 50 years old? Is that what?
Yeah, like last week. But what's interesting though is we were living in Germany at the time when when I got these records, and we were a couple of years into it. We had moved to a city called Hof an der Saale, which is Hof means like I guess stead or home, or time is really home, but Hof would be like I guess town on the Saale, which is Saale is a river, right? So and there was an Air Force base there, and so we would hang out we had a lot of friends. The first city we lived in Germany, wasn't even close. It was upstate. I mean, it was up in the north of the country, and there weren't any American military around there. But so we were in the same town as an Air Force base, so we could go see American movies. I had American friends, and so we also I learned about the AFN, the American Forces Network, which is the radio station in all of Europe or anywhere we have military. There's the AFN you can listen to, and they have American programming, American English news, whatever. It's an American station. Right. Well, what they played on the AFN though was really formative for me, because in the years that we lived there was between 69 and 74, right? And so that was the golden age of funk, and Bobby Womack, Al Green, James Taylor, James Brown, James Taylor, James Brown, Sly and the Family Stone, the Stylistics, the Supremes, all the Motown stuff. Marvin Gaye. So they were playing the R&B. Mostly, it was the pop of that day, but it was a lot of the R&B, and just hanging out at the dance parties and stuff, and it was just I really caught the fever listening to James Brown, the James Brown band. Those guitar players kind of, I locked into what they were doing and how it was like it was like clockwork, and they would be just the way the band interlocked and the way they played time together. To me, it was something I noticed and I really fell in love with. And this is even a couple years before really starting to play guitar. I kind of listened and internalized all this rhythm, and it just became something that I would, just like I was trying to sound like Jimi Hendrix or sound like all the rock and get the distortion stuff. I was really kind of into getting like really super clean strat or teletone, and trying to sound like Jimmy Nolan or I don't remember who the other guitarist is that played James Brown.
But that became absolutely evident in your studio playing, and that's what I think you got. You were well known for. Classic example is the Madonna records. I mean, you were the guy. It's like Corey Wong is the clean player now, and you paved the way as being that guy. You paved the way for people like Corey.
There was a record in New York.
Variety then.
Yeah, right. It's funny. I prided myself on that sound, and that it's funny that chord that from the band called Sky. There's a song called "Call Me," and it's just this. It's fourths, stacked fourths, but it's really a kind of it's a sus chord.
Yeah,
but that's that thing. Like, if you listen to Lucky Star, I was totally borrowing from Sky on that.
And the truth comes out and the lawsuits start, ladies and gentlemen. Right. Call your lawyer. But we do that. We borrow from our influences. Everybody.
We emulate those that we admire.
We always do that. And then we make it our own. And that's exactly what you did on Lucky Star.
Yes, definitely. Well, listen to George Benson. And I remember a teacher talking to me saying, "Oh, yeah, George, listen to Wes Montgomery," and he was going, "Okay, well, I totally appreciate what you're saying," what he said to me, but I love both. I think George Benson kills, and so does Wes Montgomery, and you can hear that's a great example of that passing along of the torch in a way, or of the knowledge, like we learn from those that we admire. For sure.
Isn't it amazing the power that radio and DJs, especially when you and I were growing up, influence indirectly that they didn't know they had, or maybe they did, but I remember clamoring to listen to KMOJ radio and Pharoah Black and what the songs he would play here, a heavy R&B influence or jazz that was going on. Same thing. It sounds like for you over there, and that the songs and the programming that they had over there must have had an influence on who you are today, and
for sure,
who you are as a player.
If we hadn't lived in Europe at that time, and it's funny, I had this little antique radio that I would listen to at night. I remember I hear stories like Jocko was like listening to. He had a little radio, and he would listen to the Cuban stations, and he was and so those are formative years. It's like we're finding those things that we love, and it happens like right when you're like 12, 13, 14 years old. That age of discovery,
So you move back to the States, you get this gig at SIR. Tell people about. Bring us forward a little bit.
Okay, we moved back to the States. I'm finishing high school. It's ninth grade to finishing high school, and I was looking at schools. But it was Berkeley. We were looking at various schools. There's a school called Five Towns College out in Long Island, and I had been working with. I had started to work with these friends of mine who I'd met out in Long Island, just through being in bands, in high school, I met these friends, these new friends that the other guitar player was several years older. The guitarist and bass player, he had just gotten off tour with Lou Reed. This guy named Jeff Ross had been touring with Lou as a second guitarist and backup vocal. He would sing harmonies, and so then we started writing songs and did a demo and sent it into the city, to over this guy Chris Charlesworth, who was the American editor for Melody Maker magazine. Heard our demo and said, "Man, I think I want to manage you guys." And so he brought us over to a guy named Ashley Pandell, who used to own a club called Ashley's, which is this famous rock club on Fifth Avenue. Back in the day, in the 70s, in the heyday of rock, and on any given, before there was the China Club, there was Ashley's. Ashley's was the place everybody would go. But Ashley was one of Shep Gordon's guys. He was one of his assistants, and he and Carl Pandell they owned a lot of restaurants and clubs in New York City, and worked with Shep being the manager of Alice Cooper. Which was one of the biggest rock bands at the time, one of the biggest artists. Shep now manages celebrity chefs. Everybody, right?
And he lives in Maui too.
Lives in Maui, I know.
Sure,
we love Shep.
We run into each other.
I always
Tyler and those guys.
Yeah, love Shep. So, but Ashley was one of Shep's junior managers, and so he took us on, and he put us. So Ashley and Chris Charlesworth put my band. We were called Teaser. With a Z.
Okay.
Yes, it was classic Long Island rock and roll.
Teaser.
Oh God, yeah, Teaser.
Great.
But we did a big showcase at SIR, and we rehearsed there for like months, and it was on the sound stage. So it was the biggest thing I'd ever done, to the time. I was like 17, 18 years old at the time, sure. And it was. There were two things that really stood out to me. The one of the techs that was setting up the rehearsal techs that was setting up gear for us, this guy Orville, he didn't show up for rehearsal one day. I'm like, "Hey, where's Orville?" And they go, "Oh, Orville doesn't work here anymore." I'm like, "Oh, sorry." He goes, "Oh, no, he left because he got a gig." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Yeah, Orville plays bass. He's in a band called Stars now. He's out on the road." I'm like, "Stars? Wait, that's a signed band. That's a band that's out on the road." It's like, that's it. I'm getting a job here. No, that happened after, we did this big showcase. It was great. And I met a bunch of people. I actually became really good friends with Rick Derringer through our showcase. He came up to me, and I was just huge fan. And right. He complimented me on the tone and what I was doing in my solos. So we really hit it off. And I also, that introduced me to that world. And I'd look up on the marquee, and on any given time at the studio, there would be, the Kiss would be on the sound stage, the Village People in Studio B, Billy Cobham's rehearsing in C with, I go in there and there's Charlie Singleton and Randy Jackson playing bass. That's like when I first met Randy.
New York, baby. New
York in the early 80s, man. Or like late 70s, early 80s. It was incredible, an incredible time. So that band ended up, we got offered a demo deal. Electro was interested in us. And it was that kind of a classic scene, I'm not exactly sure what happened, but it ended up not panning out into a record deal. However, I had remained friends with Rick Derringer. We had worked with Jerry Murata. He produced the demo that we got, the demo deal at Elektra.
Yeah,
great drummer, good buddies to this day. And I realized that I probably should get a job at SIR. So I ended up working there for about a year, and that's one day they would have like rehearsals, but sometimes there would be big auditions, cattle call auditions. So sure. One day I'm setting up, and there's like this line of girls, and there was an artist named Patrick Hernandez, whose song you might recognize. We were born to be alive.
Oh yeah,
born to be.
Sure
that guy. Okay. he put out an APB auditioning background singers. He needed 3 background singers for his American tour. And so that day I was, they were in the studio and there was this line of girls just coming through. And this one girl comes into the office and goes, "Hey, what do you do here?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm running the place. This is 54th Street. There's SAR on 52nd, and the first one, the original one, was on 54th. So we were up there at the older theaters. The older rehearsal studios, A and B. So they were in Studio A, and she goes, "Well, what do you do here?" I'm running the place. I'm a rehearsal tech, and answer the phone, whatever. He goes, "Oh, okay." Well, I'm like, "What's your name?" He goes, "Madonna." And I go, "Well, good luck with this." And my name's Paul. And that was just a random meeting. She just was, came in and just was like checking the place out. Lo and behold, she was one of the 3 that got the gig.
Oh,
yeah.
kidding.
So she went to Paris or did this American tour. And then they ended up taking her to France. And apparently the story is that they wanted to sign her and make a record with her in France, and she escaped and got back to New York and got back together with the guys from Breakfast Club and Stephen Bray, and we're working on that. So from there, I ended up after I had left SIR after the year, the band called there's a band called Atlantic Star. They were one of the they rehearsed at SIR a lot, and I had been living. I was renting an apartment in White Plains, and that's where they live. And so after rehearsal, they would give me a ride. I wouldn't have to take the train. They'd give me a ride in the van back to White Plains.
I know that train ride, by the way. I did a lot of work with Sturkin and Rogers, who recorded.
Oh, right. At Minot, probably, right?
I can't remember the name of the studio, but
it was there were a couple studios there. There's one called Minot. We'd always say, "Why not? Record at Minot." But that's where Atlantic Star recorded a lot of their stuff. But they ended up offering me the utility man position on their tour in 1982 for the Radiance album. Wow. They had Sharon Bryant was singing with them, and Porter Carroll was playing drums.
Porter was on
there.
Yeah,
my boy Porter.
Kidding.
Our boy.
He says hello to you, by the way. I'm actually interviewing those guys next. For,
nice.
The following.
Nice.
He sends his love.
Very cool. Send love right back to him. Right Absolutely. Back at you.
Yeah. Okay.
So he's part of the family that offered me my first opportunity, to tour.
How cool is that?
So it was so cool. There's more to the story though. That if I backtrack a little bit, there's I had been working on this record. I had been doing some sessions with this artist named Keith Zoros, who was signed to RCA, and Ellie Greenwich and Jeff Kent, who are names that may ring a bell with you. Ellie Greenwich is an amazing writer, producer. She worked with Phil Spector. She wrote Leader of the Pack, Going to the Chapel, all these. She was like the counterpart to Carole King. She wrote all these songs in the early 60s that were just huge hits. And Jeff Kent was the keyboard player in what was the band with Weckl and Michael Brecker in the early days, their first band. I'm like totally drawing a blank.
Will Lee?
With Will, exactly.
Can't remember the name of that either. He came up from Miami to do that. He was one of my guests, and he talked about that band. You're gonna look it up, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm looking it up on my phone right now.
Go for it.
Go
for it. Yeah, Will. Will was going to do that gig for, and that came to an end. And he was going to go back to Miami, and all those guys made him stay.
Wow,
so that's funny. Yeah.
Wow, it was as it's it's funny. Like we'll definitely get the name of that band. But Jeff, let's move on. Let's move forward because I had been working on this record with them producing, and Keith was definitely not one of my favorite artists. But I was really into it, and I love but I gotta me see. Okay, I'm looking for. Okay, different Jeff Kent. They came up with a Jeff Kent baseball player. We were working at the studio, and I walk out of the studio one day. We're rehearsing to go in and record, and there's that girl, Madonna. She's like, I'm like, hey, how you doing? What's going on? She goes, your band sucks. I'm like, thank you. I think. She goes, no, but I like you. I like you, but I think you should be in my band. I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting. Well, tell me about, what do you mean? Well, how do I know I want to be in your band? Can you sing for me? I don't even know what your voice sounds like. And she, right at the point, sang me something in that kind of, that mousy Madonna voice from the first album. Sure. And I was like, wow, okay. She was good. She was on pitch, and I liked her, better than Keith's voice. Yeah, I liked Madonna's. I said, okay, well, what do I do? What do you want me to do? And she goes, can you come here Saturday at noon and wear something cool? And here's some music. And John Gordon, who's the guitar player who was leaving, was like a session guy. Really good producer, good writer. I mean, he had handwritten out charts. I still have them somewhere with instructions and all that, and how to use your Casio data bank to create the echo, the alarm beep, then put it up to the pickup and put it through a digital delay. And it was like totally stuff that I had that same watch already. I was like, I was a nerd. So I got it, and I nailed the rehearsal or the audition and got the gig. Camille Barboni was the manager, and we were rehearsing in the music building, New York City. It was right on 8th Avenue between 38th and 39th Street. David Frank was the keyboard player. Stephen Bray was the drummer. A guy named John Kay, who ended up playing with Bowie, was the bass player. And so that band right there, joining that band rehearsals early on, was key. It was the beginning of, it was before the System. David had branched off to do the System.
Yep.
And before Madonna really kind of hit it. But I played on those demos. And that was just before Atlantic Starr offered me the gig to go out on the road for the summer. So I went away for like 3 months. David Frank ended up going out with a band called Clear. And that on that tour, that same year in 1982, Mike Murphy was the tour manager for Clear, and that's how David Frank and Mike connected. Meanwhile, I was out on the road with Atlantic Starr that summer, listening to like Jeff Lorber records in the bus on my cassette on my Walkman,
Sure.
But just listening to the radio, the first System song was on the radio already, In Times of Passion. I remember hearing it and go, "What is this?"
Right.
And I get home.
So inventive.
Yeah. So I get home. We're actually on the bus, right? On the Jersey Turnpike coming into New York City. It's like 7 a.m. So it's like everybody's just waking up. We're realizing we're coming into New York. So we turn on the local radio station, WKTU, and on comes. I'm like, what? I said, I know this song, and then all of a sudden we hear, "Everybody, come on, dance and sing." I'm like,
oh yeah.
I'm listening to the radio. I'm like, wide eyed. I'm like, that's Madonna. Oh my God, Madonna's on the radio. And the guys are like, Porter Carroll's like going to me like,
"Who's Madonna?
Who's this Madonna? What are you talking about, Madonna?"
It's horrible. What is this Madonna?
So I get home. I call her on the phone. I'm like, "Madonna, what's the story? I heard you on the radio. What happened? What is this?" She goes, "I got signed. I'm signed to Sire Records. In fact, I want you to come in the studio. I'm not happy with the guitar." And it turns out I didn't realize she had been working with Reggie Lucas, who's an amazing guitarist.
Yes, of course.
Who's just a great musician and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Who wrote Borderline.
Okay.
But she and Reggie weren't seeing eye to eye, so she fired him.
Okay.
And Yes.
Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers.
Yes.
Join the club.
Cheers to them. Hey, member of the club early.
Yes. I salute you.
I salute you, and you're fired.
So I go in, and the first song that she had me play on was something I had done on the demo, which was one of the songs that got her signed, was Burning Up. She really liked how I did these harmonics and stuff. So she had me play on Burning Up. And then there was another song, Lucky Star. She had me do the guitar for, and that's where I borrowed from the band Sky. That really
classic rhythm part that everybody had to cop, man. In cover bands,
right?
Whose part were they copying? Double P, Paul Pesco.
The other Double P.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, man. From one Double P to another.
That's
so
right.
It's funny because there was that Billie Jean kind of thing, that David Williams thing that he was just so incredible at. So I was really kind of channeling David Williams and the band Sky, the guys from James Brown's band, all that kind of, it really kind of coalesced into my style, really. That's kind of where it comes from. And I mean, I just fell in love with funk. I just love the funky thing, and it's just like it's funny, like how some people don't really understand what it's about. How how each part is integral, but it's not about. It's about the simplicity of it in a way, and how things work together, or those moving parts. Like even like you can even do like something that's like a little 16th note stab, like. One E and a two, but fitting that thing right in the right spot, it becomes like this thing. What I love to do, I don't know about you, when I'm playing in that sort of situation, is to really it's all about, I play off the hi-hat pattern. Like Ferroni to me is one. I love his hi-hat patterns, and like touring with Madonna, we had Omar Hakim on the road with us. But I've been spoiled. I get to play with people like you, people like Gene Lake.
Oh yeah, our buddy.
Or listen to Garibaldi. Somebody like him, and the interplay of how he does those ghost notes on the snare, and his hi-hat patterns. That's all the kind of like those little things, and it can seem very complicated, but in a certain way, there's a simplicity to fitting in and finding that part and it's one of the things that I absolutely love about funky music, about funk, and how that works. Some of the best bands.
Tell me a little bit about your relationship with Madonna. You moved from being buddies to playing in her band. You went on tour with her, right? Right.
Well, she had an appreciation of where I could go musically, or that I was always able to kind of figure out what she wanted, because oftentimes she'll know what she doesn't want, and
isn't that funny? Yeah.
Which a lot of artists do it. It's kind of think of it like sculpture in a way. You have like this, you have this mound of clay, and you start taking away things, and then all of a sudden a shape reveals itself to you. And so I actually don't mind working in that way. It's almost like creative deletion,
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like I would I like to approach. Well, there's of course in any given situation, the dynamic of how you work with a given artist or producer, it has to, you kind of establish it. Sometimes people have a very definite idea of what they want. Like working with someone like Arif Mardin, he would write it down. He'd write out the part for you, so you're there, you're reading down the part and kind of internalizing that, and then making the music. But oftentimes they a lot of DJs, artists, or a lot of DJ producers who come from almost a different place. It's not it's not academic really, but they're, and so oftentimes they can't describe what they want in musical terms or in our musical language. So figuring out what they need or what they want or what they're asking for is often a challenge. But that's I think one of the things that I do well in the studio or
that's why you became one of the first calls in New York. So here's a question I've got for you that I've noticed about watching someone who's a friend catapult into the stratosphere as far as their career goes. You've done it as a sideman. I've watched it as a sideman. Have you seen your relationship? Did it change the way you and Madonna interacted from the time you met as hanging out, and then all of a sudden she's this superstar?
I have right. Well, that is a very that is a good question because it is a.
And I don't mean that derogatorily at
all. No, not at all. But I remember during the first tour in '85, towards the beginning, we were all like, let's go to the movies. Yeah, we all want to go. Who wants to go to the movies? And because we're all on the road. You're kind of a road family, and you call around to everybody's room, and you get a group together, and like it was like 4 or 5 of us probably. Madonna being there, and she already had a bodyguard. They knew that she was going to need one, but she actually learned on this one time that I'm talking about was just kind of it was a turning point where she kind of realized that can't work or it's not going to be the same. It was right at the point where the MTV videos were really hitting, so everybody knew who she was. She was very recognizable. She was kind of being herself. She was because it wasn't like a costume that she put on. She would dress up, but in her everyday life, she was Madonna. So I remember us walking to the movie theater, and then there were like 2 or 3 kids behind us, following us, trailing us, and then we turned a corner, and then there was another like. Soon there were like 20 kids, 30 kids following us, and she had to duck out with the bodyguard. She goes, "That's it. We can't go to the movies. We can't do this." So
we all dramatically, yeah.
Her life changed dramatically, and she had to kind of go into a protective mode. She couldn't just, when you're that famous, it happened fast for her. It's you don't know what you lost until it's gone. Is a phrase
you ask for too.
Right. But anonymity and being able to just go to the store and as your private self is something that you take for granted until you become so famous that anywhere you go, people know you, and that can be kind of a curse almost. I've seen people not deal with it very well.
Well, exactly.
It's I know on the road with certain artists, and like like they're trying to put some food in their mouth or something, and somebody's like, "I'm sorry, I don't mean to, but I really love you," and it's like, "Love you too."
Yeah.
But I get how it can get a little overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, the same goes for you, though. I mean, you're on the road with all these famous people, with Steve Winwood, Madonna, J-Lo. You yourself start to get recognized.
People recognize me more from. I have to say, of late, people recognize me from the TV show, from Live from Daryl's House.
Is that right? Isn't that something?
In the most kind of random places.
So you're more egotistical now than you were when you were when you were 20. Your head is yes, and it quite piss off. Then yes, right. No, that's fantastic. I didn't know that.
No, it's a cool thing. It's kind of fun because I'll be like at the grocery store, something, right. And somebody, I turn around, I'm like grabbing the Paul. I'm like, hello, yeah, man, you are so good. I love the way you play guitar on this, and I'm like, and what's Todd like? What's Todd? I'm like, so I like it. I actually I don't mind. I don't respond in a negative way at all. So.
Well, sure. I'm sure at this point in our careers, it's kind
I'm
of
like,
nice.
hey, you recognize me? I don't recognize me.
Who's that guy in the mirror?
I don't recognize him. So, yeah,
Hey,
man.
let's talk a little bit about some of the different folks that you toured with. When I bring up Steve Winwood's name, tell me what that makes you think.
Oh man, I just great admiration. I love his voice. Steve is one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. He's so polite. He'll even shush people down as they're like, for a standing ovation after a great song or something. He'll be like, "Oh no, this next song." He's just
really
such a nice guy. And but after the show, he becomes this dangerous guy because he's like, "Oh, one more pint." I'm like, no. 2 pints is good enough. I can't drink. I don't like. I'm not a drinker, really.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying he is. But he's definitely a classic Englishman who likes his ale or likes his.
Sure.
Fancy a pint.
Nice.
But man.
So he wanted to hang.
Yeah, and man, we actually, he was one of those people who wouldn't mind if we were like in a hotel lounge and the band was up there, he'd say, "Hey, you guys want to go? Let's get up there." And we'd do like "Give Me Some Lovin'" or something,
You're kidding.
And I played bass on that. That's not a hard. I mean, the hardest thing about that song is holding and playing it in F. And you're holding that F octave forever. And so your hand is like,
Play with pain, baby.
Play with pain. Yeah, exactly. Play through the pain. Exactly. Play with feeling. Pain. Lots of it.
Tell me about Cher.
Cher was a lot of fun. I didn't really tour with her for a long time. Paul Merkovich is a good friend. I'm sure you know Paul, don't you? Paul Merkovich?
I know of him. I don't
Keyboard player.
Know him.
He was Cher's musical director. It was for the single "Believe." When "Believe" was released, I got called in to work with her.
Oh, right. Okay.
And we did David Letterman, Saturday Night Live, a couple other TV shows.
So you did more of the shows than the actual
tour.
Yeah,
exactly. I didn't really tour there. I played on albums. I've done some of her studio stuff. I'd have to look up the song. It's actually we did When a Man Loves a Woman. No, it was the James Brown.
While you're looking, I know the name of the band you were thinking of. It's called Dreams.
Dreams. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have Google will travel.
Yes. So
never mind. We don't have to look up the song. That's
okay.
Fine.
Okay. The shares I ended up playing on her albums and playing this stuff live. These live performances, which were very interesting, and it's interesting that it was for that song, "Believe," because that is right, and using the auto tune, and it was really a turning point.
Huge.
For
That was
the
a whole
the
can
sound.
of worms that got opened on that.
Yeah,
song.
It's funny how people were like, "Oh, we don't want to hear it. You can hear it. I can hear it." It's now, we can hear it. We want to hear it.
Yeah. T-Pain wanted to hear it. Cher
T-Pain,
wanted to hear it.
right? Akon, now
man.
everybody, So it's become a thing. I have to say, I actually like when Stevie sings a little bit sharp. You know what I mean? He sings a little above the tone, and
sure does.
Just like in opera. I'm going to backtrack into opera singers, and there's a thing that opera singers do in a theater, and it's making use of the Doppler effect. We're getting a little scientific here.
Science alert.
Okay, if you've ever stood on the street or in a playground and a siren, a fire truck goes by, or a police car with a siren on, or an ambulance, if you ever notice the pitch of the sound goes down, right? Right? And that's something called the Doppler effect. The sense of, how we perceive the pitch falls, right? So, knowing that, if you, as a singer, sing a little bit sharp, the note will fall into key or into being right, versus you sing a little bit flat, you're singing already out and getting worse, right?
Ooh.
So opera singers do this as a a way of, because where they're singing is up on a stage, the orchestra is often in a pit. So where their sound meets and to the listener is out in the theater. So there's all sorts of stuff that's happening with the sound, the tone. So if they sing a little bit sharp out in the theater, it sounds right.
Fascinating.
Right?
Before amplification, of course.
This is all happening. This is all figured out before amplification.
Mm-hmm.
And it was probably just, maybe somebody was just out there going, man, you're singing out of tune. He goes, no, I'm not. He goes, get up here. I was singing in tune. And then but somehow they figured it out. Mr. Doppler.
Yeah, they probably had a few pints with Steve Winwood. And they said, what if I just sing a little in the back of the room? Yeah, that's how they figured it out after a few pints.
And catch this dart.
Yeah.
So, but I've noticed this about singers, and something I did notice about Stevie Wonder, who's probably my favorite artist and favorite singer, one of my favorite singers of all time. Truly a Mozart of our era.
Totally.
He I don't know if he does this consciously, but he sings a little bit above the tone, and it fits right in there, and it always sounds good.
Creates tension too.
Yes.
Yeah, it really does.
So
let's fast forward a little bit.
Let's bring it into the present.
Let's bring it in. Well, I want to talk a little bit about Hall & Oates because
okay.
the portion of your life that was you said that people recognize you from the show. You did a lot of great
thank you. Yeah, I loved doing that show. I was musical director and guitarist for 38 episodes.
Isn't that something,
man?
And it came from the humble beginnings, right? A couple of camcorders, and all of a sudden it's like,
yes, yeah, it's incredible. They were just really a couple camcorders at Daryl's house with T-Bone and the guys, and Uncle Todd coming over and playing, or Dave Stewart,
wow,
they went and visited Dave on one of his riverboats in England on the canal. And then, but that was all before I came to the show. Unfortunately, the reason I even got called in was because T-Bone had passed.
Right.
It was really
right.
He had an embolism, and it was just tragic. A tragic loss, a huge loss, because he was such one of my brothers. One of the people I really looked up to and loved his playing. He was just one of those people who had no fear, and he had this if James Jamerson and Paul McCartney could be fused together, you'd have T-Bone, because he had this funkiness, and he would just lay it down and then just do these fills, these rock fills, and just like go for it and just like take chances, and then always land on his feet. He was just one of those great players.
Completely musical guy.
Yes, he was the
so
state.
You get called in and you go ahead.
Oh no! Well, he was. I was just going to make a little footnote there. He was state champion on accordion.
No,
when he was like 14. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fun fact that we
fun fact.
Know.
Exactly. T-Bone Walk. The man.
T-Bone Walk on the accordion, boys.
On the accordion, yeah. Thank you, boys.
Thank you, boys. Well, you had a big job there because there was a lot of musicians coming in, and I know that there wasn't a ton of rehearsing going on. That was fly by the seat of your pants, right?
Yeah, you had to do your homework and come in prepared, but then be able to really shift gears on a moment's notice, and it was definitely a challenge. It was so much fun, and the actual one of the first shows that I did was the T-Bone tribute show, and so G.E. Smith was there.
Oh, sure.
And it was myself, John Oates, G.E. Smith, Daryl, and we went through, did a whole bunch of we did a Delphonics song, and it was a sad occasion, but it was a celebration of his musicality and of his life.
Sure.
And
I sure loved watching you on that show, and that was a great tenure for you.
Oh,
about,
for sure.
How many years was that?
It was in 4 years. I did 38 episodes.
Oh,
so
man.
Do the math. We did not have a lot of time off. You know,
True.
So it was great. I really loved. We got into like a nice routine where Daryl and I would listen to songs of whoever the guest artist was, and then choose the songs, and then I would deal with the guest artist and have them choose a Hall & Oates song or a Daryl Hall song to perform, but don't choose the obvious. Dig deep, you know. Because a lot of people would go, oh, I want to do Rich Girl. I said, yeah, well, guess what? We can't do Rich Girl. We've done that like 5 times already.
Right.
We need to choose we need something else. So, but that and of course the dinner segment was always great.
Oh,
we'd have a guest chef, and the food would always be great. If you notice, Brian Dunn and
whom I love,
who's great, and me, we're always like stuffing our faces because the food's like great. Daryl wouldn't touch his food because he'd talk and he didn't want to have any, and he would hardly touch his food. He would eat, but he would drink the wine. But Brian Dunn and I would be there stuffing our faces because I can't believe how good this is. And
he's a funny character, man.
He really is.
And he's a great drummer too.
Yeah, great drummer. Good dude.
You spent so much of your life on the road. Did you and do you have a routine? We talked a little bit about this before to stay healthy. I know you
actually I have gotten into the best shape of my life on the road.
How?
Because it's funny because I know that a lot of other people on the road kind of fall off the wagon. With me, it's like I flourish. I do really well with the time constraints. It's like, we have sound check is at a certain time. You have to be in the lobby at a certain time. So I'll just gauge it. I'll wake up and just hit the gym. I'll run for I'll do at least 30 minutes on the treadmill or on the bicycle. I would lift first, but I would get into like a whole thing, and pretty much all of the hotels would have a gym, or if they didn't have a gym, I would find one in the area. And I've become pretty disciplined when I'm on the road. It's the off the road stuff is trying to find, like when I'm not on the road, finding that routine, because things now, of course, with kids and school and things that come up over the course of a day, or there is no routine. It's hard to establish a routine that is as steady as a tour. Because there's like, sound check's got to happen. We got to be in the lobby at a certain time. So I was always able.
It's predictable.
It's predictable. So that's where I was able to do well, and I've gotten into the best shape. Really kind of using that routine and the time constraints of being on the road.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'm not a big drinker. I'm a social drinker. I'd have a couple drinks here and there. But it's not something I go to. And then I'm more like the. It's funny if you see like in my room you'd see like white powder. It's protein powder. It's like it's whey protein, and then you go, oh, and there's the blender. It's like
different white powder. Yes, than what was around in the 80s. That's
right. Of course, which was the downfall of a lot of people. But but with me, I've been able to really kind of get into a routine like that, and I love it. I really do like that, and I think I need to go on the road and get in shape, man.
Well, look, let's get you healthy first, and now because I shared that I'm in a little bit of a
so let's make a pact. You and I need to make a pact.
Hey,
let's do it, man. Fist bump. Come
on, baby. Let's go. Let's talk a little bit about because we only have about 10 minutes left here.
Okay.
How has your life changed being a father and a husband? You got married to, is it Tatiana?
Tatiana, yes. Tatiana.
2013?
Yeah. Well, it's been it's definitely different. It's there's a dynamic that is that is established now, that is so different from like throughout my career, where it's like if I just needed to go, I'd go, I was gone. If I need to do this, if I'm in the studio till 5 a.m. in the city or something.
Yep.
But it still happens now and then, but not as common. But like right now, I've just finished a 24-day, like just straight ahead, 24 days straight. I worked every day in the studio with Robert Clavillis on this new album project, that band that he's producing, new band
from C&CMusicFactory.
C&CMusicFactory. Robert Clavillis, yeah.
Yeah.
Who I did all those famous records, Everybody Dance Now.
Everybody Dance Now.
Yep, I did that with, in fact, I used this to make that sound.
That's you playing the old Zoom sound?
Yes.
I did not know that. I thought that was a sample.
Well, it's a sample of me. Okay.
I did not know that.
I'm gonna do a little blog explaining how we made that sample. But they had a little keyboard. They had this little keyboard sound, and it was really, they had kind of taken. It was almost like the Mission Impossible theme, Yeah. But they made it into 4/4. But they had a keyboard sound that was doing it, but they wanted something a little bit more intense. They wanted a real guitar, so I played it down. I said, but there was like it being distorted. Because they wanted distortion, they wanted it to be power chords. They were like you could hear the string squeaks and like the finger movements and stuff. So we ended up grabbing one of these guys, a drummer. Oh, I have it. I actually have one over here.
Gate.
Yes, the drummer Gate, and so they keyed the Gate to that keyboard sound, that little silly keyboard sound to open and shut really hard. And so then I doubled the guitar. It's 2 guitars. And then they just fed it through the gate that had been keyed to the other sound, and so it's dot 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 dot. So
I've known you this long, and I didn't even know that was you. Isn't that funny? That's great.
Yeah,
that's great. What you doing? Let's move forward because you're doing new stuff with them in the video.
Yes,
that I saw.
Yes, that video.
Over 1 million views.
Yes, Yo Soy Latino is the name of the song, and the band is called Latinos del Mundo, which means Latinos of the world. This is the latest creation and band that Robert Clavillis has put together. I'm helping out. I'm engineering. I'm co-writing some of the songs. I'm playing guitar on some of them, and on a large part, I'm playing engineer and editor and stuff. So I've the last 24 days have been a whirlwind. I literally have just come down for. Yesterday was my first day off, and it's just like, oh my god.
Well, I'm glad I could get you right back in the studio to do this.
Yeah, no, it's
Tell
cool.
Tatiana I'm sorry. Yeah.
Paul says hi, and he's sorry.
Yeah, he says hello and sorry. She's a good advocate for you because I've been doing Funk Friday for 77 episodes, and she comes on my feed and goes, "What's the matter with you? How come you're not calling Paul?" And I'm like, because I'm an idiot. I don't know what I meant. And then, of course, now that we've done that already, and we're gonna do more. But
that was
she's
fun,
cool,
though.
man. I like her, so I like her so much.
She's definitely somebody who's gonna take initiative and get in there and say something.
She should.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's really a big supporter and a driving force.
Good for you, man.
Which I already have on my own, but she's like, and she's really good with like keeping track of stuff, invoicing, which is good.
That's important. That's fairly important.
You mean we get paid? I mean, get paid?
I can get paid for free, Paul. Yeah, do everything for free, Paul. Double P. You just did this soundtrack for the Aretha Franklin movie too, didn't you?
Yes, that just came out. We're so excited about it. It's a movie called Respect. And I attribute, and it's funny, it's one of the names I mentioned earlier. The drummer from the Madonna band that I auditioned for and got the gig in, Stephen Bray, has done incredibly well in his career as a composer and producer. He had this band Breakfast Club. He co-composed the stage play for The Color Purple, which was a hit. I mean, they did well. They won several awards for that, and it was produced by Steven Spielberg and Oprah. And they handpicked Stephen Bray Pam Shane, and Piano in the Dark.
Brenda Russell.
Brenda Russell. They all they
Dun.
thank you.
Yes.
They handpicked those three to compose the color purple. So he's been doing other stuff and really kind of has always called upon me to come and play guitar and stuff on the Breakfast Club albums, and I'm so grateful to him for giving me these opportunities.
Yeah.
So he had been we had been working on a couple things, and he let me know. He goes, "Listen, there's something coming up, and I want you to play guitar on it. I can't tell you what it is, but it's going to be very cool." And lo and behold, last September and October, August, September, October, we did the guitars. I did all the studio scenes where they're in the studio working out. There's always two guitar players because the Swampers, the one guy would play the Gretsch, a country gentleman, and then the other dude would be on Telecaster. So the actors were there, and they were players. They could really play, but they had me put in, something that was studio quality.
Of course, yeah.
And it was kind of fun because
you were the stunt double.
I was the stunt double. I was like the
stunt double.
Right. And I was doing like really kind of Foley because there was a couple things where he moved his hand, and I'm like, there's no sound there. Oh, we got to put a string squeak in there. So
really,
yeah, that was kind of fun stuff. And
that's great.
I did much of the live stuff as well. Like Chain of Fools is something I really kind of got inside. Is it Joe South? I think is the name of the guitarist that played on that. But that tuned down to a C. It's like really kind of the strings are floppy, but that's that. If you listen to the intro of Chain of Fools, it's that little kind of bluesy lick, but it's like really kind of almost sounds like a baritone guitar. It's a Strat tuned down to C. Yeah, it's a very cool part. But I listened down to that. I charted every nuance of that of the way he play of the record on a chart, so that I had something to follow, and then applied it to the live treatment of that in that scene. So that's something I'm really proud of. But really excited about the movie. It's been getting great reviews. I actually haven't seen it yet. I was in the studio working.
Right. I haven't seen it either, but now I'm even extra.
You have
to go check it out because my Double P brother is on.
Come on, man.
Hey, you know what's funny is that I sit here and you and I, we've known each other a long time, but this is really cool because I get a history on you. You've been doing this for a long time. What keeps you motivated to this day? Because, look, we ain't no spring chickens anymore, but then you seem like you're still hungry. What's up with that?
It's weird. I am. I that's the perfect assessment. And I have never lost that fascination, the hunger, the excitement. I like hearing something on the radio, going to the movie theater and hearing something I worked on. It's just the thrill. It's just so thrilling. It'll never get old for me, and I just feel incredibly lucky and filled with a feeling of gratitude, really. And I don't know. It doesn't get old for me, and it gets old for the people around me, like my family. They're like,
yeah. How about the French Riviera instead of movie theaters? Hi, Dad.
Right, come on, right. So, and
what a great career, man. One thing before we go, give me some advice for someone who wants to be the next Paul Pesco. Give some advice for up and coming musicians. What do you think the most important thing is?
Keep an open mind, really. Keep an open mind, open ears, and try to learn It's funny. I remember there was early on when I was younger, there were certain styles of music that I really held above others. Like, oh man, this is better than that, and I really didn't like country music. But I have a newfound love for everything, and there's something to be learned from every style, and it's funny to think about it. Like there's these that's the reason I think that like a punk band, so some of these musicians who can hardly play their instrument could land on something that's truly meaningful, because I actually have an analogy. If somebody doesn't speak English that well, does it mean that what they're trying to communicate to you doesn't mean as much, or isn't as important? So I take that same, I'll take that analogy and apply it to music. So if somebody really can't play music that well, or isn't that proficient on their instrument, does that mean that something that they're hearing in their head, or if they get to it, it's not as meaningful? So I used to discount and not listen, only listen to the finest, and I still do. I mean, I learned from the best, but
right.
I have that's why I can listen to a Shags album and go, they're kind of hitting something there. But I think that, but keep an open mind. There's something to be learned from almost everything. Maybe what to do, what not to do, but but music is a language. It's not a sport. That's one thing that I feel strongly about. And if you go to YouTube, you see a lot of YouTube virtuosos now, which are who are amazing on their instruments. But to me, it's like, why is Carlos Santana such a great artist? Because he understands the simplicity and being able to play a couple notes and really just reach into your heart and communicate a feeling and an emotion. So approach music with that attitude, being really open. Don't be afraid to play something in a simple way.
Right. Good word, man. Good advice for these youngsters. But gotta tell you, this is so much fun for me. I'm sorry it took so long to get you on
please.
the show. But
I'm here. I've been here, and we're not going anywhere. And now we'll be collaborating on some other stuff. You and I got on the Session Wire. We'll be doing it.
You and I have a lot more music to make together, man, and it's such an honor to have you on here and call you friend for so many years.
Thank you, man. I love you, man.
I love you right back. Everybody, this is Paul Pesco, my old buddy. We will see you in 2 more weeks. Thanks for listening and watching.
Thank you for having me. Take care, everybody.
We're out. Music on the Run was hosted by yours truly, St. Paul Peterson. Edited and produced by my buddy Davide Raso. Artist relations by Owen Sartori. Video editing by Tanner Montague. And a very special thanks to the people who financially support this podcast. And remember to keep an open mind.